In order to answer the question whether this is a baby bass boat or a big ass yak, we're gonna have to look at all the different features, comparing what do you see on a bass boat versus what you see on a kayak. And we're gonna take some measurements as well, get you a sense of the scale of the size of this. And at the end of this video, you should have your answer on whether it's a big ass yak, a baby bass boat. Either way, it's definitely a kayak. I've never seen a trailer winch hookup on a kayak before, one for baby bass boat. But then again, never really saw these handles on a bass boat, one for kayaks. And these handles are really nice. It's got a little rubber underneath, reinforced on both sides. Big upgrade from the Titan X. I have seen trolling motor mounts on both. You just need to buy the XTR bow motor mount plate and it'll hook right up. Bass boats don't have these no drill power link panels. We have 5 of these throughout the kayak, and they first came out on the native Titan X. They've been brought on this. There's 4 of them that look like this, and then there's one large one in the back. I'll show that one to you later. Bass boats don't typically have these drain channels like this either. This big open bowl to drain out on either side of this. They do usually have bilge pumps, and since this does not have a bilge pump, we're giving one to kayaks. We have rails on either side, T-rails. And one of the other things that's a little odd is that they chose to put their logo so high in the right spot for your lettering. The nice thing is it does provide you a line to put your stuff on. Kayaks are known for their Yak Attack gadgets, and this is a Yak Attack quick release lock and load base mount. And this boat just happens to have a custom mount point for these devices. Never seen that on a bass boat. These points along the boat, some of them have 2, some of them have 4. There's a few of them along the outside of the hull. They're made to hook up your Yak Attack quick release lock and load base mount. You take this T-nut out, toss it to the side. You're gonna use something like this. It's a 1/4-20 stainless steel threaded rod with an Allen head. First thing you do, take out the screw. Save it because you might need it later. Next, you take your 1/4-20 threaded rod, put that in, get it kind of snug. And once it's in there nice and snug, you take your lock and load base mount, find the right spot, and then you put this and screw it all down until the base mount is nice and flush and secure. That's perfect. I do want to show you something though to be on the lookout for. It's not a big deal. You can shave off a little bit of this, but they're not all made equally, and sometimes you just can't get it in there quite right, and that isn't going flush. It pops out, so don't be surprised if it doesn't fit quite nicely at first and it keeps trying to pop out. Just force it down in there and then screw this on until it gets nice and snug, and then you won't have any issues. It will be extra tight. And there you go. These are awesome because you can hook up some fish finders up here. You can have some camera boomsticks. You can have rod holders, whatever you like. Bass boats don't have that. And for those wondering, on center, it's about 5 3/4 inches. Most boats do have hatches, and this one is no different. This comes with easy twist latches, no tools required. Marine mat with the XTR logo etched inside of it. Made in USA, just like me. With the flag, we have 2 hinges on either side. This is one of the things that I don't like. These screws, you can see already that it's starting to lose some of its paint. They just get chipped. I don't know if they're stainless steel or not. I fish saltwater, so that's coming off. These are C-clamps, so you want to take off the entire hinge if you're taking off a hatch. It's just too much of a pain in the butt to get just this off. And that's going to come into play when we're talking about the tandem seat area. Let's open this hatch and look inside. On the front, if we're looking towards the bow, you'll see there's a piece of foam. It is about, I'm gonna guess 3 to 4 inches. I think it's to help provide a little bit of reinforcement for when you put a trolling motor on the front. It could also help the buoyancy a little bit. On the other side of it, you can access the power panel that will be used for your trolling motor, wires, your lights, all that, etc. Right here is where the computer plate that you could buy from Bonafide would sit. If you don't know what a computer plate is, it's a piece of plastic, metal, whatever you want to make it out of, or if you buy it from Bonafide, they have one prefabbed already. Or you can go ahead and do a DIY like we're gonna do, and that's coming up in a couple weeks. Speaking of which, if you like DIYs and you wanna continue to see videos like this walkthrough, other DIYs, hit like, subscribe, and make sure that notification bell is set to all so you don't miss any of our videos. If we look underneath, one of the cool things about this is wide open. The channels go all the way back. I'm trying to shine a flashlight so you guys can see all that. And what that's gonna allow you to do is run your electronics, your steering lines, any kind of wiring that you have or cabling. Being able to access the entire underside of this boat is pretty fantastic. That is a plus. I don't know that a bass boat can say that, so we're gonna give this point to a kayak. Let's go ahead and get a quick measurement of the opening of this hatch so you guys get a sense of how much space there is. We got a 17 at the one edge, 20 at the widest, 12 and a half. So I would say 12 and a half by 11 and a quarter is a good, solid, easy in and out, not bad. And this angled is 12 inches. So 11 and a quarter by 12 by 2.5. There we go. You get the gist of it. It does have these threaded nuts in the bottom of the hatch right here. I'm gonna go ahead and guess that there's gonna be some kind of accessory that you can buy, maybe a net or whatever. Moving on to the standing platform, we have the widest point of this kayak, and we're gonna go and call it 40 and a half inches. The standing platform itself is right around 37 inches by, we'll say 18 at the widest and 15 right here. It also comes with marine mat, has 2 tracks so you can hook up a captain's bridge or other things. You can have cabling come through the hole to get down to a battery if you want to put your fish finders up here and have a battery up under there. Again, the marine mat's really nice. We have the Bonafide logo, the Bonafide lettering. It's awesome. Still have these screws on the hinges that I don't like. And when you take this off, because this is also the tandem seat area, right here you have 4 nuts that are embedded in the hull of the kayak, and that's where you're gonna mount the tandem seat. I'll show that a little bit later because I do have a tandem seat and I want to point something out on that. Underneath the hatch, we have these threaded nuts again inside the hatch. I know for a fact there is a tool holder that you can buy on Bonafide. I'll put a link below, and that attaches right there and it looks really nice. It's pretty awesome. Then you have your rubber hold downs right here. Just put them like that on either side. Typically a kayak doesn't have a standing platform like this. We're gonna give one to bass boat there. But bass boats and kayaks have been known for having tandem seats for a while. We're gonna give both a point for having tandem seats. Underneath the hatch, we have a power link panel, 2 scupper plugs that come stock with the kayak. We have a place for a battery well. The only thing I'll mention about this is I did have my NK300 battery sitting in here when we went out, and it is a little roughed up. Probably gonna put some little marine mat or something right here. Large area, you can put, lots of different things depending on what you want. Your tackle, your electronics, lunch even. On the underside of either side of this hatch, you'll notice that these indentations are here. That isn't about drainage. Well, partially, but it's the rod tip holders for the rod holder on the side. Both bass boats and kayaks have had rod holders on the sides. We got to give a point to both. I'm not sure who's ahead at this point, so let's move on. In the cockpit of this kayak, we have foot controls that come standard. They are adjustable. You flip this up or you flip it down like that and you can slide it and you flip it back and it's nice and secure. That's pretty awesome. Bass boats don't have that, 1 point for kayaks. Bass boats also don't have these scupper holes and these channels, just like this kayak does, and it has this beautiful marine mat. Okay, let's not get it twisted. When I say that bass boats don't have scupper plugs, that don't mean they don't have drainage. I'm comparing this to a bass boat and a bass boat to this to determine what this is. Not saying one is better than the other. Moving along the rest of this cockpit, you can see we have more of the PowerLink panels on either side. Let's take a measurement. The widest part of the cockpit is right around 29 inches, right at the front of the foot controls. If we move back though, we'll see that the vast majority of the cockpit is right at 24.5 inches on the inside. And if we go from the outside to the outside, we're looking at 26.5 inches. That's the vast majority of this cockpit. That's the width of it. As you can see, it's not as wide as you would once think it would be. This is a bass boat, only 24 inches in the cockpit. I think it's a little bit wider than that. We're gonna have to say it's looking more like a kayak. We have this awesome seat. It's much like the Native Titan X. It swivels all the way around. Bass boats, they do that too, don't they? All right, we'll give another point to bass boats. But we're gonna talk about how this is mounted real quick. We have these rail mounts here, and I wanna show you this for a reason, because if you start doing this, you're gonna want to know this. You are really gonna wanna know this. These seat rails, as you'll notice, have these screws that are not flush. They're not countersunk all the way. And as such, when you start sliding this, it will hit that and kind of flops all the way around. In order to move this properly, you want to loosen it up so you can pick it up all the way and then slide it as a single unit and then drop it in place. If you don't do that, you're going to get scratches in your hole, just like I did here before I realized what was happening. A lot of scratches on both sides because of that. So that's the least favorite part of the kayak for me, is these seat rails and how they're not flush. I do have a DIY that's gonna address this, and it's gonna make it a lot nicer. And I think that you might wanna try that out. But in the meantime, make sure you lift it up and slide it as a unit. Let's get back to the seat. Much like the Native Titan X, these things are not stainless steel. You can either replace these, or you can watch my DIY that's gonna be previewed at the end of this video. Stick around, find out what I have in store to address this rusting issue. But other than that, it's a great seat. If you didn't have any problems with the Native Titan X seat, or if you've had seats like this before with these non-stainless steel swivels, then you'll probably won't have any issues this time. We're gonna finish this side and then we'll move down to the stern. We'll take some more measurements. On either side of the kayak, we have more of these lock and load base mount points. We have a handle so you can easily transport this, slide it up and down off a trailer, whatever. But beware that this is kind of slanted towards the boat, and it will actually get some water pulled up in there. You just want to wipe it out when you're done cleaning it. It's not a huge issue. If you do a transducer off of a switchblade, if you have live scope, or maybe in the future a sidekick, this is where you're going to be able to hook it up on either side of the yak. Go down the rail goes pretty far, so you got a lot of room to put things. Here's the butt end of the rod holder. Up there you put your tips. This is a great idea for you that have bait casters. You can kind of lock them in, force it in, but for spinning reels, they kind of fall down over the side. You can kind of flip them upside down and kind of lock it in, but I feel like on the bumpy, you know, if you hit some rough water, it might fly down. I did take this kayak out on the water already. I didn't get any water in the hull, and I attribute that to these scupper holes and these channels and how it's designed. I'm gonna show you the underneath and why I say that, but I did have water kind of come up on top of this edge here. Didn't get in the kayak at all, but did kind of pop up here. So I'm thinking, being salt water, I'm not gonna put my rods up there. But for you freshwater guys, feel free. It was 1 to 2 foot chop, so take it for what it is. Moving towards the back of the cockpit, we have a battery well here with the drain channels going down to the scupper holes. We have battery tie down strap points on either side of the kayak. Oh, on either side of this, we have paddle holders. I think by default that makes this a kayak because you can just use a paddle. You don't have to have a motor on this at all. Does that make it a kayak by default? I think so. All right, moving on. We have this large power panel plate right here. You can run your cabling in from the back to the front. You guys get the gist of that. Let's measure this battery well here so you can get a sense of exactly how big it is. The battery well is 14 and a half, maybe a little over 14 and a half, maybe 14 and 3/4 by, and between 7 and a half and 7 and 3/4. 7 and a half to be safe. So if you're looking for a battery box, you know, you go 14 and a half, 14 and 3/4 by 7 and a half, and you're gonna be okay. If you do put a battery box in here and you do want to have a through hole connector here, you wanna make sure that you don't put the connector on the bottom, because that battery is gonna be here and it's gonna be really hard to get any kind of cabling connected. You wanna make sure that it's up top. You might wanna flip this around so you have this nice smooth surface, depending on the size of your through hole connector. Keep that in mind. On the back down here, we have our spot for our trolling motor, whether it's an NK300, a tiller driven, a Torpedo, whatever, it comes pre-equipped with a mount point. On the left and the right, we have 2 screw holes. I'm not sure what attachment that's for yet, what accessory. We're gonna find out in the future, I'm sure. These handles, I know it's kind of weird that I'm excited about handles, but these are some really heavy duty thick handles. They really make it easier to trailer, to land, to launch this kayak. It's great. Here we have our mounting point for our custom vanity plate Kayak Life license plate. Seriously guys, I don't know what attachment this is for, but it kind of looks like where you would put a license plate. When this was first announced and I saw how the transducer was supposed to be mounted, I wasn't thrilled. I can't say that I'm still thrilled. Right here and right here on both sides of the kayak are where you're supposed to mount your transducer. And that's okay if you can flip it up, which my mount looks like it's easy to flip up. But when you're landing and launching this, it has the potential of being knocked and messing up your transducer. I'm underneath this kayak because you might not have seen this before, but we had these scratch guards on either side. If you rooftop mount it to transport it, that's gonna really help you out. We have our scupper channels here. And if you notice, the scupper holes are really high up there. It allows the bottom of the scupper hole to sit above the water, not at or in the water, allowing the kayak to drain faster, dry quicker. The other thing about these scupper channels is they go all the way down. They're 12 inches on center. If you use 3-inch PVC, preferably double walled according to Bonafide, that is the preferred method for transporting this kayak on PVC bunks. I don't think we trailer our bass boats on PVC bunks either. We're gonna go ahead and say that's a kayak thing. Another point for kayaks. We're gonna go ahead and give a point to the bass boats because they do have transducer mounts. Probably better ones than this too. Also underneath this kayak, there is a nice edge on both sides, which help with the stability, and it allows this thing to have great secondary stability. I want to show you what it looks like with some of the equipment that you might actually have and take out with you. First thing is paddles. Let's go ahead and put some of those up here. Show how that looks with it. It's beautiful. Next up is a 13x16 black pack. If we put that right here, assuming that that's where it would go, we'd have some kind of tie down thing. That's one of the things that this doesn't really have is tie down points for a black pack. I guess we're gonna have to put something here and here, here maybe, I don't know. Usually we tie it down here, but I guess we can use the seat rail. If your battery box is here, your 13x16 is here, you wanna have your seat pretty much right above the power panel plates, because if you don't, you won't be able to twist this. You can have it come back a little bit further, but it's not gonna be as comfortable to twist yourself around, and that's okay. Looking from the top, you can see that's not overly ginormous like you thought it might be. One of the points I wanna mention is if you're riding tandem and you wanna bring a black pack, you're gonna need to have this seat further back, kind of where the black pack is, so you can, you know, offset the extra weight. So you're gonna wanna put this probably up in this area. You're not gonna be using the footrest if you're riding tandem anyway. So there you go. Tandem seat time. I mentioned I would show you how the tandem seat mounts. Let's go ahead and do that. want to take the 4 screws out of the hinges and just remove them totally, get them out of the way. Set them aside so you don't lose them. When you get the tandem seat, it's going to come in pieces. You're going to have the mount, you're going to have the swivel, you're going to have the seat, you're going to have the attachment screws with the knobs, and you're going to get the hardware to attach the swivel to the seat. I'm not going to put all that together for you. I am going to show you how this mounts though, and something to watch out for. We're going to take these, we're going to put them in each of the threaded nuts and just get them kind of loose. You don't want to put them too tight till you get all of them in there. Make sure it's nice and fit. This is the thing that I want you to watch out for. I tried both seat mounts, the one that came with the kayak, the secondary one, it's not the seat mount. I can't actually get this in here without stripping that out. Not a huge issue. I could drill this out, or I could do my DIY. I wish I would have known about this before I bought this seat. I didn't know because when I left the kayak dealer, we didn't check it. I didn't have the tandem seat there. I ordered it from Bonafide directly. Had I known, I would have went ahead and did the DIY that I'm about to talk about. But before I do, one of the reasons why I don't like this carbon steel, after the first trip, you can see it started to rust. The hardware is starting to rust. And it's in salt water, it's not in fresh water, so that's to be expected that it's going to rust. But one trip, and I wash it down with Saltex or Salt Gone. This is why I am doing my DIY and I'm sharing it with you, because sooner or later, it's gonna rust for everybody. I don't wanna give away all the details of this DIY yet because it's not finished, but I'm gonna use some extruded aluminum, saltwater friendly swivel, and a custom seat. I'm not only building this as a tandem seat, I'm building this as a replacement for my primary seat, so I get a totally saltwater safe seat. I'm gonna build under seat storage that's built into the seat. I'm gonna make this the coolest seat that you can get for the XTR130, at least in my opinion. Hopefully you'll think that too, so check back soon. That DIY video will be up. And not only that, it's a saltwater friendly seat. That's gonna save you about $100. Tight lines, look forward to seeing you on the water, on your baby bass boat or your big ass yak. Either way, we do know that this is a kayak.